Hey, Grandpa. I'll tell you what woke me up. They bombed the World Trade Center. I'm looking at it. Meek Young's videotaping it. Terrible. I heard, Grandpa, I saw it. It could have been a plane, but I think it was a bomb, a missile. This could be World War III.
They're going to destroy this country. We're going to end up in a world war. We'll end up in World War III. They'll destroy our country. We have to get out. We have to win. Under the Trump administration, you were better off. Your family was better off. Your neighbors were better off. Your communities were better off. And our country was far, far, far better off. That's for sure. America was stronger and tougher and richer and safer and more confident.
We will not fight a war against Russia in Ukraine. Direct confrontation between NATO and Russia is World War III, something we must strive to prevent. As we provide this support to Ukraine, we're going to continue to stand together with our allies in Europe and send an unmistakable message that we will defend every inch of NATO territory, every single inch, with a united, galvanized NATO. One movement. That's why I moved over 12,000 American forces along the borders with Russia, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Romania, etc. Because they move once. Granted, if we respond, it is World War III, but we have a sacred obligation on NATO territory, a sacred obligation, Article 5. And we will not, although we will not fight the Third World War in Ukraine. Putin's war against Ukraine was never be a victory. Democrats are rising to meet the moment, rallying the world on the side of peace and security. We're showing the strength and we'll never falter. But look, the idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III.
As Ukraine succeeds on the battlefield, Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner. And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
Don't.
Russia with its starkest warning yet. Moscow's top diplomat accusing NATO of engaging in a proxy war that has created a serious risk of a worldwide nuclear conflict.
Really, the risks are really considerable, and I would not want to elevate those risks artificially. Many would like that. The danger is serious, real, and we must not underestimate it.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III, just in case anybody doesn't know it. World War III has never been closer than it is right now. By the way, the war with Russia would have never started with Ukraine, would have never started if I was president. October 7th would have never happened. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. This is a very dangerous time that we're in. It's dangerous in terms of crime and all, but it's very dangerous in terms of a possible World War III. We're very close to World War III, and people don't realize it. We're closer than we've ever been, I think, ever since World War II, but this would be the war of wars because of weaponry. This isn't, as I say, two army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. The level of power, the level of weaponry that there is in the world today is so bad, is so dangerous, is so bad. Now we have a big danger from North Korea, we have a big danger from Iran, we have a big danger from Russia. We have a potential of World War III. We're at the most dangerous point in the history of our country because of the power of weaponry, nuclear weapons in particular. Weapons that are so powerful and I've seen the effects. And I had an uncle, a great professor at MIT for many years. We used to talk about nuclear a lot. He understood nuclear very well. And even then, that was many years ago, my father's brother, Dr. John Trump, and I think he was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT. I think 41 years, very smart. We used to talk about nuclear, and he used to talk about the power of nuclear, and I'd say, Uncle John, we're a briefcase, the size of a regular briefcase would do damage that I don't even want to discuss. And we're a long way from that in terms of the advancement of that technology. And it's very bad, very scary. And I will tell you, we have a chance of going into World War III because of our leader. I have a real problem. I love this country. I don't want to see this country get into a nuclear war and be so badly damaged. What we say won't matter. This won't matter. This place won't matter. Nothing will matter because practically nothing's going to be here anymore. The level of power, of power with the weapons and the weaponry, that's real weaponry. That's worse than the weaponry that we were talking about a little while ago. This is the ultimate, this is obliteration, maybe world obliteration. And we're closer to World War III. Now, you take a look at what's happened in the last few days. Putin is now talking about nuclear weapons for the first time. I mean, he's talking about them all the time because Ukraine is now talking about hitting Russia.
The Americans have never had a stronger contrast than the one they will have on the ballot before them on November the 5th. We had a secure border. Now we have a wide open border. We had peace around the world. Now we have chaos. We are on the brink of World War III because of Joe Biden's weakness.
I am saying I think the race is moving towards President Trump for two reasons. One, he's been very focused and very disciplined. Both his advertising in the swing states, which not all of us get to see, has really focused on the key issue of the economy, the key issue of inflation, the key issue of war, and the fact that they're moving us closer and closer to World War III.
And you got the Ukraine war keeps heating up. It's only going to get worse as well. As we had warned, and it's in your Trends Journal, they're going to attack nuclear power plants in Russia, and they have. And now the Atomic Energy Commission is warning about, the International Atomic Energy Commission is warning that this is serious, the danger it's committed already. They're going to ramp this up. If we don't have peace, it's going to be hell on earth. And it's up to we, the people, to make it happen. Cause, let's see. Central bank cuts key rates again. Oh, who's this? Central bank, blah, 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 blah. Oh, Sweden. Oh, and so too did Switzerland. They're all cutting rates. The lower the rates go, the higher inflation goes. The higher inflation goes, the higher gold prices go. So there's going to be the office building bust that only the Trends Journal is talking about. And as the office buildings go bust, the banks go bust. Zelensky sells victory plan as Russia wins territory. Financial Times. U.S. is skeptical of Ukraine victory plans. Wait a minute. Biden just said at the UN that they got victory at hand there. This is from the Wall Street Journal. But what happened today? President Joe Biden announced this $8.7 billion military assistance to Ukraine on Thursday. All right. All right. As the country rots in front of us, it's probably almost $200 billion that we've sent to Ukraine. I'm sure Zelensky spent all that money just for military and all that stories about him buying mansions and everything else. You know, that's never denied. This is serious, very serious, because Putin plans Russian nuclear doctrine change, citing new threats. It is proposed that aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the participation or support of a nuclear state, be considered as their joint attack on the Russian Federation, Putin said. We reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression against Russia and Belarus, including if the enemy using conventional weapons creates a critical threat to our sovereignty. The quote buried at the bottom of the article. We are on the cusp of nuclear war. Matter of fact, it's the cover of this week's Trends Journal. Israel war, Ukraine war, nuclear war.
If that happens, the Middle East will forever look different. Think about how World War I started. World War III can start exactly the same way. President Biden today used an extraordinarily scary word at the United Nations, and nobody picked up on it. He said the world is at an inflection point. Well, so if the inflection goes the wrong way, right, then it's World War III. It's not that hard. Things either get worse or they get better. We don't know which one. Unsurprisingly, Donald Trump today said it is all Joe Biden's fault.
This would be such a different country right now. We would have had no inflation. You wouldn't have Russia attacking Ukraine. You wouldn't have had October 7th with Israel. The Middle East is blowing up. We could be very close to World War III with these characters that don't have any idea what they're doing.
By every available measure, the world is a more dangerous place than when Joe Biden took office. That is not a partisan statement. Just go back to September of 2020. Yes, we all had COVID. That existed. We didn't have a war in Ukraine. We didn't have a war in the Middle East that could explode regionally and draw the United States in. We didn't have a strong China-Russia alliance. We didn't have a strong North Korean-Russian alliance. We didn't have the North Koreans bragging that they were going to build more nuclear weapons. None of that existed. We didn't have Chinese ships ramming our allies on the high seas. All of that has happened over the past 3.5 to 4 years. Reasonable people can agree the world was a lot safer place under Donald Trump. You could argue causation or correlation, but the world is now a much more dangerous place after 3.5 years of Joe Biden.
An FBI whistleblower urging Americans to, quote, vote, arm themselves, and stock up on 3 to 4 months of food and water, and to pray. And again, this is coming at the same time as Russia is announcing they will use nuclear weapons if a nuclear-armed power gets involved directly against them, or if, you know, people start hitting Moscow. We'll show you that announcement at the same time that obviously the war is heating up in the Middle East, at the same time that they're trying to frame Iran for assassination attempts against Trump. It's like we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But combine this with the fact that they're going to try to steal the election. They're already setting up the narrative for red, what they call it, red illusion, red mirage. I think that's what they call it, where, yeah, it's going to look like Trump is winning on election day, but then in the middle of the night, something's going to happen, and by the morning, it'll be Kamala has won, and you're not supposed to question it, and we're telling you now to prepare you to accept this in the future, even though logically we should have no idea what's going to happen. They're setting something up. You even have congressmen like Jamie Raskin talking about civil war conditions, talking about, you know, basically they're going to rig the election. If you question it, you'll be deemed a domestic terrorist. They'll go after you. They expect civil war conditions, which means they're preparing for civil war conditions, which means they're getting ready to wage war in a very real and overt way on us. All of this happening at once. And now you've got this FBI whistleblower telling people to get ammo and food for the next 3 to 4 months, as if we don't have way more than that already. Let's go to this video and see what we can make of it, shall we?
And everybody in the minority party, they're fearing what Donald Trump would do in the next administration, while they sit here and they look at the guy who's been persecuted by the FBI. And everybody in the room understands it. Mr. Allen, do you have comments you wish to make? I'll give you about a minute and a half, and then I want to turn the rest of my time to Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir. I would just say that I consider the hearing today my last act of service as a public servant for the United States of America. And I'll give you my professional opinion. I was an intel professional for our country for many years, and I would give recommendations, and I'd also look at indications and warnings. So I would offer this to the American people as my warning to them. Since this is a warning to the American people, I say, I personally have no confidence that the FBI will rein in its own conduct. I've been persecuted along with Garrett, Steve and Kyle, and countless other whistleblowers. It is my opinion that the Bureau used reprisal and fear to control the workforce. It has been a seemingly effective tactic. I personally believe that there are no current effective checks and balances against them conducting lawless action with any type of correction in a legitimate time frame. I welcome the work of the IG, but I think any type of lawless action, there's no legitimate time frame to rein them back in. Their ability to overclassify information can allow them to stonewall forever. To the American people, you have a duty as a citizen to vote, and I strongly urge you to do so. It's how you participate in the American experience. I know people have doubts about election integrity, but you must vote. It is your claim. Stake your claim and don't forfeit it willingly. Have your voice heard. My other recommendations are in the natural order. First, vote. The second is the Second Amendment. Arm yourself and know how to defend yourself. Make 3 to 4 friends in your neighborhood and promise to come to each other's mutual aid in times of hardship. And during the Great Depression, people stocked up a pantry. So I think that's a good practice, especially in our economic times, and make sure you have 3 to 4 months of food. And as a person of faith, I'd say pray the rosary, go to the First Friday devotions. That's for everybody, all my brothers and sisters of all faiths, and I know I'm Catholic, and read the gospel of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and live it every day. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the time.
A stark warning from Vladimir Putin as President Biden appears ready to approve Ukraine's use of long-range Western weapons. Putin says that would mean NATO is involved in this war.
We want to turn now to the war in Ukraine and fears of a wider conflict. President Biden and UK's Prime Minister met on Friday to discuss allowing the Ukrainian military to use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. But Russian President Vladimir Putin is now warning of severe consequences if that happens.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been pleading with allies for months to let his country fire long-range Western-made missiles deep into Russian territory. We're talking specifically here about the U.S. ATACMS and the British Storm Shadows. Ukraine says these long-range weapons will allow its forces to destroy air bases and other military targets from which every single day Russia is launching attacks that are killing Ukrainian civilians. Until it's given the green light by Western countries, the Ukrainian military cannot hit those Russian targets. But the U.S. and the U.K. appear increasingly open to lifting the restrictions, which prompted a warning from Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, saying that if Ukraine fired those weapons into Russian territory, he would consider the U.S. and other NATO countries directly involved and therefore at war with Russia.
NATO forces are discussing plans to deploy advanced long-range weapons to target deep into Russia, which would most definitely trigger a full-scale war with Russia. Vladimir Putin responded yesterday to this major escalation. He said that this is an attempt at manipulation, because it is not about allowing or forbidding the Kiev regime from striking inside Russia. They are already doing that with drones, flying devices, and other means. But when it comes to using AI precision weapons, long-range Western-made ones, that's a completely different story. The point is, and I've already mentioned this, any experts could confirm this, both ours and Western ones, that the Ukrainian army is not capable of launching strikes with modern, high-precision, long-range, Western-made systems. This is only possible with the use of a proprietary system, which Ukraine does not have. This information comes only from European Union or United States satellites, essentially NATO satellites. That is the first thing. And very importantly, maybe the key thing, is that flight missions on these rocket systems can basically only be programmed by military personnel from NATO countries. Ukrainian servicemen are not able to do this. That's why it's not about allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not allowing it. It's about deciding whether NATO countries directly participate in the military conflict or not. If this decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct involvement of NATO countries, the United States and European countries, in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct involvement, and it significantly changes the nature of the conflict. It would mean that NATO countries, the USA and European countries, are at war with Russia. And if so, given the change in the nature of the conflict, we will make the corresponding decisions based on the threats posed to us.
NATO prepares plan for huge number of casualties in case of World War III scenario with Russia, as German military says an invasion could happen this decade. And so this is all a lie. They lie to you about Russia. I mean, I would say the worst case, depending on how you look at it, but let's just say the worst case with the Russia-Ukraine situation is that Russia is going to just take Ukraine back. Maybe they claim it as Russia again. Maybe they leave it as Ukraine, but it's basically pro-Russian government, if not just run by Russia. So that's like the most aggressive stance from Russia would be they're just going to take Ukraine back. The least aggressive stance from Russia would be all you have to do in Ukraine is have an election. They don't have elections anymore. Zelensky canceled them. He's a dictator now. So all you got to do is he's a warmonger dictator. So Russia would just say all you got to do is back NATO off our borders, allow there to be elections in Ukraine, and promise that Ukraine will never join NATO. So that's like that's your scale of the real situation in Russia. Either Russia is going to take all of Ukraine, or Russia will say, hey, we don't want war. All you got to do is get NATO out of Ukraine, get NATO off of our border, have an election, and promise Ukraine will never be a part of NATO. And that's it. That's all they want. Maybe they give back the land that they've taken, but I doubt that. That's probably just Russia now. And that's what the people voted for. So we're pro-democracy. So Russia moves into Ukraine, takes a lot of the eastern portion, and then has elections, and those people vote that we want out of Ukraine, we want to be part of Russia. Then Zelensky says, we're canceling elections, no more elections, I'm the permanent dictator. But they really want this war, they really want to demonize Putin, they really want to demonize Russia, and so they say, Russia's going to invade Europe. And it's just total bullcrap. It's just total BS. And there's no logical consistency either. Because really, if you're going to sit here and talk about an expansionist empire or an expansionist plans at war, then you're going to talk about Israel. And if you're going to talk about that leading to World War III, then you're going to talk about Israel. Israel has already gotten away with so much, and they say, okay, we're at war, so you guys attacked us on October 7th. Yes, they stood down, but whatever. Let's just look at it from this standpoint. Okay, so that's their excuse. So they're launching war in Syria and Lebanon and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And they say, oh, well, we got attacked on October 7th, so we're at war now. So everything we do is excused because we're at war. Well, okay. So then what happens when Israel goes into Lebanon or the West Bank or the Gaza Strip and tries to take it, and then they get hit? Is that still just considered war, or does that break out into a World War III situation with Iran and the United States getting involved? So if there's any real threat of expansion or invasion leading to World War III, it's probably Israel and Iran. But they lie about Russia and they demonize Russia because they want you to be distracted with that. So it's like, hey, look over here, Russia's the boogeyman, and they'll get you distracted with that and maybe try to pop something off there, and then Israel will make its move, and there'll be a tit-for-tat situation and escalation over there, but they'll just say, oh, no, it's all Russia's fault. But then it's the same groups. It's the same Israeli lobby. It's the same NATO that just shouldn't even exist anymore. So that's the real threat. And this, that they're planning for the mass casualty event. That's just them saying, it's the same thing. They go and blow up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. They did that. The deep state did that. They bragged about it. So that's the kind of crap they're going to do. They'll blow something up. God forbid a tactical nuke. They'll do some sort of isolated event. It'll be a proxy army. It'll be some proxy group, some shadow operation, intelligence agency operation. And they'll have a big explosion, a mass casualty event. They'll do a false flag. They'll escalate the situation, and then all these different pieces will fall into place, and then they'll just say, okay, we're at World War III. And maybe they want to do this before the election. Maybe they want to do this before the inauguration. Maybe they want to have a situation like they do in Ukraine where they just permanently cancel elections and just say, no more elections, we're at war. But see, they wouldn't be announcing this stuff. They wouldn't be doing this stuff if it wasn't in their playbook. They wouldn't be running through this process and saying, hey, this could be going on if that wasn't a scenario. But it's always the same group. It's always the military-industrial complex. It's always the same intelligence agencies that run Ukraine as a vassal state. It's always the same people. The military-industrial complex client states in Israel. The military-industrial complex client states in the Ukraine. And so they all get rich. They're all drenched in blood. And then they point the finger at the people they're going to blame the war on. And then it'll be the same story. Americans have to lose their treasure and lose their blood for these war whores. So you've got the national warning of, there could be domestic violence ahead of the election. You've got the international warning, there could be escalation of World War III. Yeah, well, who's causing it? The same people that are warning you about it.
Do you think they're going to steal the election again?
I'm of the mindset that it's going to have to be postponed, that they're going to do something, whether a terrorist attack, a false flag, or even World War III to postpone the election.
Sometimes I'm not even sure that the whole system isn't rigged to begin with. You know, the whole system itself isn't rigged to just control the people.
There's going to be a war either way. Whoever gets installed, whoever goes to the White House, there will be a war regardless.
If we imagine a terrifying scenario where a nuclear weapon was to hit a major US city like New York, the consequences would be devastating. Not just for New York, but for the whole world. We'll explore the domino effects of what could happen if this nightmare became a reality tomorrow. From the immediate impact to the long-term effects, we'll take a look at the potential devastation and how it would change our world forever. What would happen if a bomb like Little Boy, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima, was detonated in New York City? Little Boy had an explosive yield of approximately 15 kilotons of TNT. When it was dropped on Hiroshima, it resulted in catastrophic destruction and loss of life. If a similar bomb were to hit Manhattan, the impact would be similarly devastating, but on a much larger scale due to the city's density and population. The explosion would create an intense fireball, vaporizing everything within a radius of about 200 meters or 650 feet. Skyscrapers, buildings, and people within this zone would be instantly incinerated. The blast wave would then radiate outwards, causing severe damage to structures up to 340 meters or over 1,000 feet away, shattering windows and collapsing buildings. Heavily built concrete buildings are severely damaged or demolished. Fatalities approach 100%. The immediate death toll would certainly be in the tens of thousands, if not more. Beyond the immediate blast zone, the heat and firestorm would cause widespread fires, engulfing large parts of the city. The intense heat would cause third-degree burns to people within 11 square kilometers or 4.4 square miles from ground zero. Third-degree burns extend throughout the layers of skin and are often painless because they destroy the pain nerves. They can cause severe scarring or disablement and can require amputation. The fallout, radioactive debris lifted into the atmosphere by the explosion, would spread out over a much larger area, carried by wind patterns. This radioactive fallout would contaminate the environment, making it hazardous for survivors and first responders. Emergency services would be overwhelmed, and the scale of destruction would make rescue efforts nearly impossible. Hospitals would be flooded, and the city's infrastructure would be shattered. The psychological impact on survivors would be enormous, and the city would face a long, difficult path to recovery, if recovery were even possible. However, such a scenario with a little boy atomic bomb detonating in New York is extremely unlikely. Only if terrorists could somehow get their hands on such a weapon could it happen, but the likelihood of that is very low. If a nuclear weapon were to detonate over New York City, it would most likely come from a nuclear-armed state, plunging the world into a possible nuclear world war. While New York City is a symbolic and economic hub, it lacks significant military targets, making it less likely to be a primary target in a nuclear conflict. Washington, D.C., with its concentration of political and military leadership, or U.S. nuclear silos, aimed at crippling the nation's nuclear arsenal, are more probable targets. Striking these locations would aim to dismantle the U.S. command structure and reduce its retaliatory capabilities. However, there is an incentive to deliberately target densely populated areas like New York to maximize civilian casualties and cause widespread panic and destabilization, a strategy known as counter-value targeting. This approach aims to break the enemy's will to fight by inflicting massive civilian and infrastructural losses. The US and Russia possess the world's largest nuclear arsenals, remnants of the Cold War's arms race. Today, they continue to maintain and develop these formidable stockpiles, with Russia holding approximately 5,997 nuclear warheads and the US close behind with 5,550. These numbers alone are staggering, but the modern capabilities of these weapons make the situation even more alarming. Russia's arsenal includes the infamous Satan missile, known officially as the R-36. It has been a cornerstone of Russia's nuclear deterrent. However, it is the newer RS-28 Sarmat that truly represents the terrifying potential of modern nuclear technology. The RS-28 Sarmat, also known as the Satan II, is designed to carry multiple warheads and has the capacity to evade missile defenses, making it a potent tool of destruction. It can deliver up to 15 warheads anywhere in the world, ensuring that no target is beyond its reach. This means that a single missile can deliver 15 separate nuclear warheads to different targets. This capability is known as multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, making the Satan II missile a highly destructive and versatile weapon designed to overwhelm defenses and deliver catastrophic damage to multiple targets. Based on various reports and analyses by defense experts, the Satan II missile has a total payload capacity that can unleash a maximum energy anywhere from 15 to 50 megatons of TNT. Now, let's imagine the terrifying scenario on the lower end. A single Satan II missile is launched towards New York City, with each of its 15 warheads having a yield of 1 megaton of TNT. The Satan II missile can only be launched from land-based silos. If launched from the Uzhur missile base in southern Siberia, it would travel over 9,250 kilometers, or over 5,750 miles, to reach New York City. With a top speed of Mach 20, and taking into account the different phases of flight, it would reach New York in about 30 to 35 minutes. Even though it is extremely unlikely that a single missile would be used in a nuclear war scenario, for educational purposes, we will imagine that a Satan II missile is launched and has now reached New York City to understand the raw power of such weapons. In our earlier example, we imagined a little boy atomic bomb detonating over New York City with an energy of 15 kilotons of TNT. Now consider the Satan II missile, which has 1,000 times that power at 15 megatons of TNT. If we thought it would be difficult for New York to recover from a little boy atomic bomb, there is no question that the RS-28 missile would utterly destroy the city. If a Satan II missile, with its 15 megaton yield, were to detonate over New York City, the destruction would be catastrophic. The explosion would create a fireball with a radius of over 4 kilometers, or 2.6 miles, vaporizing everything within an area of over 50 square kilometers, or 19 square miles. The extreme heat would produce temperatures higher than the surface of the sun, incinerating buildings, vehicles, and people in an instant. Beyond the immediate fireball, the thermal radiation would cause third-degree burns up to 34 kilometers, or 21 miles away. This would encompass most of the New York metropolitan area, causing severe burns and igniting widespread fires that would be impossible to control. Some experts believe that the higher end of the yield range for the Satan II missile reaches 50 megatons, exactly the yield of the Tsar bomber, making this scenario even more terrifying. Since the Tsar bomber could be seen from as far as Norway, a nuclear weapon with a 50 megaton energy detonation over New York City would be visible all the way to Columbia, South Carolina, and would shatter windows across Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, and up north reaching Quebec, Canada. This is the power of just a single nuclear weapon with a 50 megaton explosion. Witnessing such a terrifying scenario over New York City would certainly mean the end of civilization as we know it, as the retaliation response would trigger a global nuclear war, leading to unimaginable destruction and loss of life.
Israel killing the leader of the terrorist group Hezbollah in an airstrike. The attack could trigger a larger war, and we want to take a brief moment to explain why. We've been covering Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. That's there. You see it. To Israel's southwest. Hamas led the October 7th massacres on Israel. But since that day, almost a year ago, Israel has also been attacked from the north by Hezbollah, which is based in Lebanon and also opposes Israel's right to exist. Hezbollah launching a near daily barrage of rockets, forcing tens of thousands of Israelis living in the north to evacuate their homes for nearly a year and counting. And one last player in all of this, Iran, which closely supports Hezbollah and has already vowed revenge. Israel has ramped up its attacks on Hezbollah in recent weeks, and now there are questions of whether a ground assault is next.
After the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah confirmed the death of its leader Hassan Nasrallah in Israeli airstrikes the day before. A succession of deeply penetrating bombs that leveled several residential buildings, the death toll still unknown. Venerated and beloved by millions across the Arab and Muslim worlds, Nasrallah was designated as a terrorist by the U.S. government and not seen in public for years for fear of an Israeli assassination attempt. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today saying Nasrallah wasn't yet another terrorist. He was the terrorist. Despite a week of escalating violence between Israel and Hezbollah, his killing came as a shock, even leading to a rare flash of frustration from the U.S. Secretary of Defense.
The United States was not involved in Israel's operation. We had no advance warning.
Nasrallah took Hezbollah's helm in 1992 after his predecessor was killed, also in an Israeli airstrike. With help from Hezbollah's patron state Iran, he built the group into a formidable fighting force and political power, with seats in Lebanon's parliament and ministers in its government. Since Hamas's October 7th attacks, he led Hezbollah's year-long fight against Israel. His death has left the powerful group battered, leaderless, and many fear more dangerous than ever.
With tensions boiling over in the Middle East, it brings up new fears of a wider war.
President Biden called Nasrallah's death a measure of justice for his victims, which includes Americans, but today also reiterated the need for a ceasefire. And administration officials tell me patience is thin after Israel took another action that could draw the U.S. into a larger conflict. Today, military officials presenting Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin with options to strengthen the U.S. military presence in the region. But with 40,000 troops there already, officials are confident in the posture and say options could include extending some current deployments.
With Israel and Hezbollah exchanging airstrikes,
Israel exploding pagers in Lebanon, according to U.S. officials. Iran's new leaders today accusing Israel of trying to trap them into a wider war. In his first U.S. interview, the new Vice President Javad Zarif tells me Iran does not want that.
We want to move in a more peaceful, more stable world. We don't seek war, but we will defend ourselves.
A real provocation to Iran, the assassination of Hamas's political leader in Tehran, as Iran was inaugurating its new president, which U.S. officials say was done by Israel.
That was clearly an act of state terrorism and a clear violation of our sovereignty and our territorial integrity. We were asked by the international community to exercise restraint in order to bring about an end to the war in Gaza. Unfortunately, that promise has never materialized.
You won't rule out retaliating?
No, we have said that we will respond in a manner of our choosing.
Zarif was the key negotiator of the 2015 nuclear deal, which President Trump pulled out of in 2018. With no more restraints, the U.S. says Iran is now 1 or 2 weeks from having enough nuclear fuel for a bomb.
It was the miscalculation of the Trump administration that withdrew from the nuclear deal. It has been a lose-lose situation.
And tonight, the world is holding its breath over the fear of a much wider Middle East war after Iran launched a new attack on Israel. Incoming ballistic missiles filled the night sky over Israel more than during Iran's previous attack in April. Many of them were shot down by Israel and by the U.S. Navy on President Biden's orders. The Iranians say the barrage was in retaliation for recent Israeli attacks, including the aerial assault that killed most of Hezbollah's leadership. Israel now finds itself battling Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and after today's attack, Israel says there will be consequences for Iran.
Good evening and welcome. It was Iran who struck tonight in the ever-spiraling cycle of violence in the Middle East. The U.S. says around 200 Iranian ballistic missiles launched from Iran rained down across Israel this evening, sending people running for cover. Just moments after air raid sirens sounded, the sky filled with streaks of light. Incoming missiles, many appearing to explode in the air, intercepted by Israeli and American defenses. Iran launching waves of missiles toward Israel in retaliation for its recent killing of the leader of Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed militia group. Remarkably, Israel says there were no deaths and few injuries as a result of the missile strikes this evening. The attacks not a surprise after U.S. intelligence several hours earlier warned a missile attack by Iran was imminent. This evening, Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu making clear there will be a response.
President Biden had ordered the U.S. military to assist in defending Israel. Tonight, the Pentagon saying U.S. Navy destroyers fired a dozen interceptors at the incoming missiles.
Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran, a significant event.
The U.S. condemning the Iranian action, saying dozens more ballistic missiles were fired than in Iran's previous attack on Israel back in April.
This is totally unacceptable, and the entire world should condemn it.
The IDF tonight saying there are no known fatalities or major injuries in Israel. Iran says the attack was a response to Israel's assassination last week of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, following nearly a year of Hezbollah rocket attacks on northern Israel. While in a late-night speech addressing the missile attack, Prime Minister Netanyahu saying Iran made a big mistake tonight, and it will pay for it.
The U.S. actively participated in defending against the Iranian strike as the president and vice president kept a close watch on the situation. Here's Peter Alexander.
President Biden tonight declaring Iran's major assault on Israel a failure.
The attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective.
The president crediting the U.S.'s extensive planning anticipating today's attack and working alongside its close ally, Israel.
Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
Earlier, President Biden with Vice President Harris monitoring the attack alongside their national security team from the Situation Room. The White House says Iran did not give any advance notice of today's missile barrage. That comes as the Biden administration's months-long effort to prevent a larger war in the Middle East is now facing its toughest test yet. The president tonight saying it remains to be seen what the consequences for Iran will be. The vice president also condemning the Iranian attack.
Iran is a destabilizing, dangerous force in the Middle East, and today's attack on Israel only further demonstrates that fact.
Still, former President Trump, campaigning in Wisconsin, argues on the administration's watch, the world is spiraling out of control.
They are very close to global catastrophe. We have a non-existent president and a non-existent vice president who should be in charge, but nobody knows what's going on.
What action can the UN take to prevent an all-out war?
Honestly, nothing.
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 A four-star Air Force general is now predicting war with China. He writes in a memo that Beijing will likely invade Taiwan while the U.S. is distracted by the upcoming presidential election. He says, quote, "I hope I'm wrong. My gut tells me we'll fight in 2025.
We hear a lot of talk about General Mike Minihan saying the U.S. will be at war with China by 2025. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says no. In your case, General, you don't think it's as much about timing as how important it is having an effective military deterrence, which right now we don't have. Fair?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Trace. I mean, first of all, this general was talking in very blunt, direct language to his subordinates. And what we do in peacetime in all the services is prepare for war. And hopefully, by doing so, we're deterring war. And that's what he was doing. He was making certain his troops understood that war could be around the corner. We have all said the very same thing to our troops at different levels of command during our tenure. But what I think is really going on here, he just came out of the Pacific region. He's very conversant with what is taking place there and the fact that we have lost our military deterrence. It has eroded because of the 9/11 wars and budgets that don't meet the requirements. And he sees that and knows that China does have a military advantage right now, more ships, more planes, and certainly more missiles. And he doesn't certainly want them to take advantage of that, but it's possible they could. It's not knowable what's going on in President Xi's mind, whether it's a year, 2 years, or 5 years from now. But what is knowable is that our military deterrence is not what it should be. And I believe that is where the general's coming from, because he knows that we're vulnerable and we have got to fix it.
And now the new polls are coming out. And contrary to what we're forecasting, it's neck and neck now between Harris and Trump.
A new CBS News poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris gaining momentum nationally over former President Donald Trump. But it's a different story in the battleground states.
With less than 6 weeks to go until Election Day, polling from Bloomberg News and Morning Consult continues to show a tight race in every battleground state. In the latest survey, Vice President Kamala Harris holds leads within the margin of error in every swing state but Georgia, where she and former President Donald Trump are tied in this poll. Harris leads by 3 points among likely voters in Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She's also up by 7 points in Nevada, by 2 points in North Carolina, and by 5 points in Pennsylvania.
And the one race that she's tied in, Georgia, there's the latest Fox News survey of likely voters in Georgia. That has Harris ahead of Trump by 3 percentage points. That, too, of course, falls within the margin of error.
Harris 5 points up on Trump in our national poll here. To put that in some perspective, take a look. We're going back a year in time here. This, by the way, this is the first time our NBC poll has tested Harris and Trump. Of course, there had been Biden before this. And just take a look. The Biden versus Trump results that we had found going back a year, a tie, Trump by 2, Trump by 5, Trump by 2, Trump by 2. And now all of a sudden you have Harris by 5 in our latest poll. So again, just big picture, how much the basic dynamics of this race changed when Kamala Harris became the Democratic candidate and Joe Biden stepped aside. First of all, you've probably seen these headlines in the last couple of days. Our own NBC poll had Kamala Harris ahead by 5. CBS had her up 4. CNN just this afternoon, Harris by 1. Quinnipiac today, they're in a tie. So, and there have been many others. So let's show you the average here. This is the average of all the polls recently, all of them conducted post-debate. Where does that net out? It nets out on average to Harris by 3 points in the national horse race right now. Now, of course, what we've seen in 16 and in 20, the last two elections, is that Donald Trump fell short in the national popular vote both times. He won once and he nearly won a second time because of the Electoral College. So what do things look like in the 7 core battleground states? Looking at our poll averages in these states right now.
Brand new Fox News polling shows Donald Trump has a slim lead here in Arizona. In a poll of likely Arizona voters in a head-to-head matchup, Trump leads Harris by 3 points, 51 to 48%. However, that is within the margin of error. Fox News polling also shows registered Arizona voters trust Trump to do a better job on immigration than Harris by a large margin of 15 points.
A fresh New York Times poll has Trump surging into the lead in North Carolina, Georgia, and in Arizona. He's up between 3 to 5 points there. And the media is bracing for the worst.
Let's say the polls are off like they were back in 2020. Look where he goes. He goes to 312. Why is that? Because the polls underestimated Donald Trump in 2020. So the bottom line is, instead of losing those Great Lake battleground states, he wins all of them. He obviously holds on to North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, and he gains Nevada. So if the polls are as good as they were in 2020, despite the fact that at this particular hour Donald Trump trails in enough states to give Kamala Harris the victory, if the polls are off like they were in 2020, Donald Trump would actually win the election.
Well, let's look at the NBC poll from Sunday. There's a lot of good news in it for Harris. It showed her ahead by 5 points nationally. But look at what else it shows. By 48 to 40, Americans think Trump would be better at dealing with inflation and the cost of living. It's the #1 issue in the country. By a margin of 50 to 41, voters think Trump would be better at dealing with the economy. That's also #1 and 2 issue. And by a margin of 54 to 33, Americans think Trump would be better at securing the border and controlling immigration.
And if you're a Republican and you're looking to take heart in something in this poll, this would be it here. Asking about a number of issues and attributes. The question asked here is which candidate would be better on. And you can see, look, on securing the border, immigration, this rates as a very high concern, voters say in our poll. It's a 21-point advantage for Trump over Harris. Dealing with the economy and inflation, if you combine them, the top issue for voters in our poll. Trump with a 9-point advantage there. He had bigger advantages on these questions when Biden was the candidate.
2024 lead, while some national polls show support for Vice President Harris ticking up following her debate with former President Trump, a new CNN poll of polls finds the race is still essentially locked in a tie with no clear leader. And much more importantly, in the critical battleground states that will decide who actually wins control of the White House, new polls in those swing states show Donald Trump with a slight advantage in the Sun Belt.
So let's take a look at where we are in these Sun Belt battleground states. And you can see a lot more red on your screen. In fact, there is no blue on your screen. Arizona, Donald Trump up by 5 points. Georgia, we're characterizing it as no clear leader, but he's got 4 points ahead of Kamala Harris. And in the great state of North Carolina, it's Donald Trump by 3 points. Again, no clear leader. What's the most important issue for determining your November vote? And this is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina on average. Look at what's #1, the economy/inflation, 31%. That's a great issue for Donald Trump. He's always led on the economy and inflation. How about immigration? Issue #2, 16%. Another great issue for Donald Trump. All right, choice for president, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. All right, Hispanic voters. 4 years ago, Joe Biden won that vote 66% in the Sun Belt. Look at where we are now. Kamala Harris at just 52%. So Kamala Harris struggling among Hispanic voters. Donald Trump doing considerably better than he did 4 years ago. How about black voters? Kamala Harris, again, leading here by a significant margin, right? She's getting 83% of that vote, but that is significantly short of Joe Biden's 92%. So the bottom line is, in the Sun Belt, which is much more diverse than the northern battleground states up in the Great Lakes, Kamala Harris is struggling among voters of color. Oh, my goodness. Look how close this race is. 276 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 262 because she carries these Great Lake battleground states, even if she loses in North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. But the bottom line is this, Mr. Tapper. This race is way too close to call based upon the polling that I currently see.
But on the presidential side, new polling is in today on the swing states from the Hill and from Emerson College. We'll get to the average point in a moment, but all of these polls right here, this is one poll, but all of these polls in the swing states, every single one of them is within the margin of error. Look, 48, 49, 50, 47, 49, 47. So it's as close as can be.
47 days until November 5th, Election Day, and new polling out today points to an overarching theme. The race for the White House will likely be one of the tightest contests in modern American history, with Harris and Trump deadlocked across several battleground states.
Let's start big picture nationally here. We've been tracking this week to week the average of all of the major national polls. Kamala Harris continuing with that 3-point advantage in the average over Donald Trump. But of course, Donald Trump lost the popular vote in each of the last 2 times he ran for president. And one of those times in 2016, he was still able to win through the Electoral College. So let's take a closer look then at the states, at the 7 core battleground states. Again, you're looking at our poll averages in here. The headline obviously continues to be, it's very close everywhere.
For more on the race to the White House, I want to bring in a friend to Top Story, Alan Lichtman. He's an author, historian, and a distinguished professor of history at American University. But his biggest claim to fame, correctly predicting presidential elections. He's been dubbed the Nostradamus of elections and has a nearly perfect track record. Since 1984, Lichtman has correctly predicted the past 9 out of 10 U.S. presidential elections. And if you're wondering what he got wrong, well, it's complicated. That was because it was 2000 when he picked Al Gore, but we know that ended up at the Supreme Court and George W. Bush winning. But he was one of the few to accurately predict Trump's victory in 2016. So how does he do it? He doesn't listen to polls or political pundits. He follows his own list of 13 true or false questions, which he developed in 1981. Get this, with a geophysicist friend, Vladimir Kailas Barak. And it's based on 120 years of presidential election outcomes before then. Here are the 13 keys that he uses. Everything from the economy and policy change to scandals and charisma. It might seem like a lot, but he joins us now to explain it all. And Alan, so you know our viewers here at Top Story, we love politics, so we're going to break this down. So first, let's get to the headline, right? Let me stop talking. Who do you think is going to win the 2024 election?
It's not what I think. It's what the system, the keys to the White House indicates. And according to the keys to the White House, we are going to have an unprecedented president. That is, the keys predict that Kamala Harris will become the first woman president of the United States.
Who is it and why?
It's going to be a path-breaking victory, the first woman president, Kamala Harris, and here's why. Under my 13-key system, which, as you said, has been right for 40 years, it takes 6 of the 13 keys to turn against the White House party to predict their defeat. At a maximum, the White House party this time loses 5 keys, 1 key short of the 6 needed to predict their defeat. And that's why, based on a system that's worked for 40 years and has nothing to do with my own political preferences. After all, I picked Trump, predicted Trump in 2016. I'm now predicting a path-breaking Harris victory.
Что касается фаворитов, то не нам это определять. Это все-таки выбор американского народа. И, я уже говорил, у нас, фаворитом, если можно так сказать, был действующий президент, господин Байден. Вот его сняли с гонки, но он рекомендовал всем своим, сторонникам поддержать госпожу Харрис. Вот и мы тоже так сделаем, будем ее поддерживать. Это, во-первых, а во-вторых...
Раззавещали, значит, надо, да?
А во-вторых, она так выразительно и заразительно смеется, что это говорит о том, что у нее все хорошо. Трамп, он же ввел столько количества всяких ограничений и санкций в отношении России, сколько для него ни один президент раньше не вводил. А если у госпожи Харрис все хорошо, то, может быть, она воздержится от таких действий подобного рода.
We still say Harris is going to win. But, as I say, when all else fails, they take it to war. Harris goes down in the polls, war ramps up. Gets the people's mind off everything. Latest surveys coming out is that consumer confidence is dragging down. And as we detail very greatly in your Trends Journal, in our economic update, bad news coming out of Germany, the third largest economy in the world. Bad news coming out of France. Bad news. Oh, China is going to stimulate their economy. You know what that is?
Bullshit detected. Take precaution.
You got it. The markets may hit a big downturn. And as we had forecast, it's right there in our July 27th trend alert. The Trends Journal had forecast that Joe Biden would step down and Kamala Harris would run for president in 2024. We said this, by the way, in 2022. And we now forecast, minus a wild card such as stock market crash, Harris will beat Trump in the race for the White House. So there you got it. The wild card. The wild card is the economy. And as that old saying goes that they used during the Clinton campaign, and again, this is what I wrote about and had a T-shirt when Bill Clinton was running, 1992. Beware Slick Willie. And that's exactly what happened. Slick Willie was up every girl's thing he could stick it under. It's the economy, stupid. That was their slogan because the 1987 stock market crash hit and still things hadn't recovered. It's the economy. This economy goes down, the markets go down, Trump goes up. And again, we call it only not the way we like it, want it, wish it. I don't want either of them, only as we see it with trend forecasters. So we've been saying Harris is going to win unless there's a financial crisis. Then it goes to Trump. They're going to do everything they can, we said, to keep lowering interest rates before the run-up to the presidential reality show. And that's exactly what they're doing in hopes of boosting the economy a bit so the people vote for Harris. Israel war, the Ukraine war, this is world war. And it's only going to be worse, and it could be nuclear war. World War III has begun. When they start blowing up pipelines in Russia, their refineries, their oil depots, etc., and Iran gets into this war, you're going to see Brent crude, which is now selling at around $74 a barrel, go to about $130 a barrel. And that'll crash the global economy and the equity markets. And it will ignite World War III officially. This is serious. This isn't made up crap. I'm a trend forecaster. I had forecast this right in the cover of the magazine 2 days before Russia launched its military operation against Ukraine on February 22nd, 2022. They launched it on February 24th. Yep. It's right there. From COVID war to Ukraine war to world war.
The Simpsons. They're a cartoon family built on absurdity, but time and time again their jokes hit a little too close to home. Presidents, pandemics, even the very fabric of reality. Somehow, they seem to know something we don't. Now, there's a chilling question. Did they predict World War III? Think back to that iconic Simpsons short, World War III, which originally aired on The Tracy Ullman Show back in 1987.
Wake up, everybody! It's World War III! Quick, down to the fallout shelter. The bombs are dropping!
Homer, in his infinite blundering wisdom, decides to test his family's nuclear war preparedness. He bursts into the rooms yelling World War III, sending them scrambling for the fallout shelter, only to reveal it's a drill. It's absurd, darkly funny, and yet it strikes a nerve. Why? Because that panicked scramble, the muttered curses from his family, that's not so far from the deep down fear many of us carry.
We have now a window of opportunity to create this global reset which we all need. This global reset is necessary because we have seen that our policies which we pursued before the coronavirus struck us, that those policies do not create the necessary inclusion of society necessary for harmonious societal development. Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
Do you believe in the creation of a new world order? And if so, what exactly does that mean, Michael?
The New World Order, as it's circulating amongst the conspiracy crowd, and I can tell you about some conspiracies. I see them in my email box every day. The New World Order, as it's defined there, is a one world government. They're afraid it's going to be a socialist government, one that's going to crack down on rights in exchange for power and wealth.
We've talked about the dangerous new alliance threatening the world as Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Tomorrow, they're meeting in Uzbekistan. According to officials, the two leaders will discuss how China and Russia can work together to create a new international order to rival our Western system monetarily, culturally, militarily.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
A new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
I think the new world order is emerging.
Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge.
President George Bush has talked time and time again about a new world order, and this is the best chance to begin to establish the new world order.
You believe deeply in your system, and we believe just as deeply in our system. It is not our common beliefs that have brought us together here, but our common interests and our common hopes. The interest that each of us has to maintain our independence and the security of our peoples, and the hope that each of us has to build a new world order in which nations and peoples with different systems and different values can live together in peace, respecting one another while disagreeing with one another, letting history rather than the battlefield be the judge.
During the conflict with Saddam Hussein, which he handled so superbly in a short-term sense, but he kept talking about a new world order. And then President Bush, at the end of that war, promised he would give 4 graduation addresses, 4 commencement addresses, describing that new world order and what America's role was going to be in it. Turned out he gave one of those addresses and canceled the other 3 and talked about something else.
After 1989, President
Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order, and instead it looks like we got a lot of disorder. And we still, and after 9/11, we've been more sensitive.
But it is the awareness itself that will drive the change. And one of the ways it will drive the change is through global governance and global agreements.
Now, much has been said by the Secretary of State and others about a new world order, about a defining moment in history. I have no doubt about the potential of this moment to be defining in terms of history, but that definition can be negative as well as positive. And how negative or positive it will depend on what kind of new world order we really create. Can it truly be said that the United States of America, trading off better treatment to China for an abstention on a vote, cozying up to Syria with its record of support for terrorism, or making promises to other countries in exchange for a hold your coat, you go ahead and take the risks and casualties endorsement, can it truly be said that these create a new world order? Can it really be said that we're building a new world order when it's almost exclusively the United States who will be fighting in the desert? Not alone, but almost. Displaying pride and impatience and implementing what essentially amounts to a Pax Americana. Is that a new world order? Can it really be said that this is a true new world order when it lacks a true United Nations collective security effort with the full measure of international cooperation and burden sharing which that should carry?
With the end of the Cold War, Henry Kissinger pointed out in his superb book on diplomacy, he said, "None of the most important countries which must build a new world order have had any experience with the multi-state system that is emerging. Never before has a new world order had to be assembled from so many different perceptions or on so global a scale. Nor has any previous order had to combine the attributes of the historic balance of power system with global democratic opinion and the exploding technology of the contemporary period." That was written in 1994, and it may be even more relevant today.
As I've told you before, because I love it so much, they also created the Great Seal of the United States. And that Great Seal of the United States has on it, Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
There is a chance for the President of the United States to use this disaster to carry out what his father, a phrase his father used, I think, only once, and hasn't been used since, and that is a new world order.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. It's a great honor to have been invited, and if I can lend a hand, I would certainly love to do so. I have to start by saying I'm a big fan, a very big fan of the United Nations and all it stands for. I can't speak as to what's been happening over the last number of years because it certainly hasn't been good. But the concept of the United Nations and the fact that the United Nations is in New York is very important to me and very important to the world.
Take the country, etc. And this becomes then part of the Washington scenario here in a very normal presidential administration.
This is a new world order.
Yes,
Let's
yes it is.
say that.
As was the Reagan era.
That's why I'm saying, as with Reagan.
And a new world order, or at least a new Washington order, when Congress is gavelled back into session tomorrow. President-elect Trump has made it clear he's got a list of Obama policies he wants to unravel and is going to look for his fellow Republicans in the House and Senate to waste no time in that effort.
America first. A new world order. Presidential decrees cascading from President Trump's pen.
I believe the best path to a more peaceful world are proud, independent, and sovereign nations that serve and respect their own people. When you look at what's going on in the world, you have so many where they don't respect their people. But we want nations that cooperate together to create better for all people.
But we want nations that cooperate together to create better for all people.
That's what we're all about, all people.
We must treat this new world order, this new world of COVID, we must treat this new world of COVID, even in our own homes, with a high level of care and caution.
We must take the opportunity to reconceptualize a global order based on human solidarity based on the understanding that it's not me against you or the United States against China, but that we as a world, especially with the threat of climate change, are in it together.
The title of this session, are we ready for a new world order?
We see that misalignment playing out, and all of them are challenging globalization. They're all creating some of the crises that we see in our headlines around the world and in this region today. Is that those crises create the seeds of a new order.
And I strongly believe India will be a central actor in the new world order.
And this present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and interdependent world order might be built. Already there are powerful forces at work that threaten to destroy all of our hopes and efforts to erect an enduring structure of global cooperation.
Are you optimistic a global system can happen from what we've heard so far?
It could happen, and in fact it's in the works.
Gordon Brown will today call on fellow world leaders to seize the opportunity created by the worldwide economic crisis to create a truly global society. The Prime Minister will use a high-profile speech in the City of London to say that Britain, the US and Europe should join together to create a new, stronger and more just world order. Vice President Joe Biden calls the newest graduates of the Air Force Academy strategic thinkers as well as warriors, and the future of the new world order.
It allows us to refocus our intelligence and military assets and resources to other parts of the world where they are needed, where we face new challenges. This is the world you are graduating into. This is what I want to talk about today with you for a few minutes. I believe we, and particularly you, your class, has an incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century in a way consistent with American interest and the common interest.
The world's going to spend a lot of time looking to you, Mr. Prime Minister, as we see more and more challenges to the liberal international order than any time since the end of World War II.
And my fellow Americans, we have to once again lead the world. Donald Trump's America First policies made America alone. You know, in the fight against climate change, we have to rally the rest of the world to act, and act now. Rejoin the Paris Climate Accord on day one. Make it clear to our allies that we'll honor our commitments, that our word can be trusted. And make clear to our adversaries that we will stand fast in restoring world order. That's the American responsibility.
And now's a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it. We've got to unite the rest of the free world in doing it.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
The closest we came to the dream was when we were doing THX and everybody was writing their scripts. Everybody was hanging out at the pool table drinking cappuccinos and waxing philosophically about the new world order and everything.
It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
The transatlantic partnership was never just the foundation of our security. It was the foundation of our way of life. It was forged in experience of the most bitter and anguished kind. Out of it came a new Europe, a new world order, a new consensus as to how life should and could be lived.
But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order.
The world that maybe some people dreamt of at that conference back in Bournemouth, when it looked as if maybe history would end, that liberal democracy would triumph, that free market economics would slowly progress, and we'd have a new world order.
Tim, what do you think America's place in the New World Order should be? It's always been seen as the global policeman. But as you said before, it's hard to see with all these military conflicts where the winner and loser lies. What should America be doing
I think
globally?
The global policeman should be the United Nations.
What sort of a financial deal should Obama be seeking to strike when he travels to China next month?
No, I think this would be the time, because you really need to bring China into the creation of a new world order, financial world order.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure, have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
The time has come for the world to move in a new direction. We must embrace a new era of engagement based on mutual interest and mutual respect, and our work must begin now.
And the president outlined his vision of a new world order in which the US would participate fully.
We meet here at a moment of testing for Europe and the United States, and for the international order that we have worked for generations to build.
The integration of national economies into a global economy. That's here. That's done. And so the question is not whether or not there's going to be an international global economy. There is one.
How much does America want to invest around the world? We're seeing a new world order now being built, a post-World War II world order. And I don't think America can retreat from that. I think we have to balance and adapt and adjust to the realities and the currents of this new world order.
And we're building an inclusive society in which everybody's got a fair shot. That's how we're going to solve these problems. So we're going to keep on pushing hard to shape an international order that works for our people.
I was asking a question inside of, because I was saying that the Federal Reserve was one of these organizations. It's one of these organizations that a lot of people say is the source of inhumane products all across the world, because it's a private bank that was started by your family.
No, it's completely untrue. I was asked that earlier. It really isn't true.
Jekyll Island, I see 13, sir. So, just one thing, we could go on about how your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
I want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
what do you, the Rothschilds family did start the federal, they divided Europe first, took over Europe, the Napoleon.
Don't exaggerate.
Well, no comment on that, sir?
New World Order, Mr. Rothschild.
What?
New World Order. Depopulation.
Oh, listen, who are you?
Genocide.
Who are you televising for?
Well, we're independent filmmakers. But you have nothing to say, Mr. Rothschild.
Have a nice life, sir. And a nice death.
Well done. Batman.
Rockefellers, come back. We don't want your New World Order, right now. Leave Chile. You are not... You're killing a lot of people! You're killing a lot of people! Leave here! Leave Chile right now! Leave Chile! Leave Chile! We don't want your world government! Leave Chile right now! Leave Chile, okay? Leave Chile! Your family is the most disgusting in the world!
Rockefeller, we know what you're doing. We know what you're doing to the world. Rockefeller, your New World Order will never come in. You're running out of time. Scumbag, you've rushed it. You screwed up.
Welcome to the New World Order. This New World Order will be a new society and features lots of changes. This new society is great for some and not so great for others. In the New World Order, you will learn to love to live more modestly. You do not need to own things when you can simply lease them from your loving government-approved companies. We will transform our current pollution-ridden cities to something much more beautiful, and you will love it. Life in the New World Order will be different. In this new perfect world, cash will be illegal. Everyone will be issued a certain amount of global credits, which will be the only way you can buy and sell in the new society. These digital financial credits will also be tied to your social credit scores. Your credit scores will become your digital footprint and will be used to control your travel, what you can buy, where you can live, your energy usage, medical excess. Everything you do will be in a government database. This is great. You will be issued more credits if you are good and promote our new system. Citizens will be given less global credits if they ever criticize the New World Order. If you are non-binary, a demented pedophile, can barely think, worship the devil, and help promote the New World Order, you will be greatly rewarded with extra credit each month. Since robots and AI will replace most jobs, you will have more time to play your favorite video games and watch more Netflix. This is so great. In the new society, parents will not be allowed to make decisions for their children. The government will raise your kids. Each child will be assigned a state-sponsored caseworker. These caseworkers will teach your kids that everything is racist, how to be queer or gender fluid, and teach them about all the different sex positions. If you object to your caseworkers teaching techniques, or if you object to the caseworker sleeping with your child, everyone in your family will be docked global credits, and your family could be relocated to a FEMA camp. Resistance is foolish. Meet Stacy. Stacy is one of our best caseworkers. Stacy could be in charge of one of your kids. How great would that be? In this New World Order, it's important to follow the rules. Certain websites will be illegal.
Daddy, what is Infowars.com?
Low crap.
If you see something, say something. You as a citizen should report your neighbors if they aren't following the new rules. You have the power to make the world better. Caring, reporting, assisting, progressive, C-R-A-P, which stands for crap. You too can be a piece of crap and will be greatly rewarded. As we see here, this man misgendered a man lady. The police are dealing with him in the most fitting way. This offender seen here did not recycle his paper straws. If you don't like this, you will be sentenced to death by lethal injection.
Brought to you by Pfizer.
Things will get so bad in our society. Your family will be begging for the New World Order. You will need the government in order to survive. In this new utopia, if you do not comply with our new laws and regulations, our totally not corrupt federal and local judges will make sure that you are given the proper penalties. Jail, financial ruin, death penalty, anything is possible. As we all adjust to the new normal, it's important to remember that you do not matter. Do not complain about the hyperinflation. Do not complain about the higher taxes. And do not complain about Bill Gates' death panels. This is for the greater good. This is what I call happy making time. Let us all celebrate this New World Order. The New World Order. Please stay a while. We won't keep you for long. We'll keep you forever. 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 Forever.
You can stick your New World Order up your ass. You can stick your New World Order up your ass. You can stick your New World Order when the sun don't shine but oughta. Stick your New World Order up your
billionaire and former CFR chairman David Rockefeller praised his media allies, but his confidence that his words would not leave the room was later broken.
We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other publications whose directors have attended our meetings and restricted their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subject to the bright lights of publicity. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government.
That these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world.